a diabolical device that caused extreme suffering, an invention that terrified prisoners for centuries, and a method of torture so cruel that its mere mention made victims confess to any crime. On March 15, 1320, in the dungeons of the Château de Carcassonne in France, a new instrument of torture was documented for the first time in the official records of the Inquisition. Known as the Pear of Anguish, or the Pear of Torment, this device would represent one of the most sadistic creations of the medieval human mind, specifically designed to cause extreme internal pain through a method so disturbing, it would become a symbol of the horror of medieval justice. What made this instrument particularly terrible was not only the physical suffering it caused, but the scientific precision with which it was designed to maximize agony, while avoiding a quick death. Created by specialized artisans who applied engineering knowledge for purposes of pure cruelty, the Pear of Torment represented the pinnacle of technical sophistication applied to human torture. Its existence reveals how medieval societies could channel creativity and craftsmanship to create instruments of suffering that defy the modern imagination. To understand the magnitude of terror this device inspired and how it became one of the most enduring symbols of medieval cruelty, we must examine not only its mechanical construction, but the historical context that allowed its creation and systematic use. The Pear of Torment was developed during the 14th century, a period when the medieval Inquisition was reaching its peak of power and technical refinement. During this time, professional torturers had evolved from simple brutal executioners into specialized artisans who studied human anatomy and mechanics to create increasingly effective instruments. The development of the pear represented a milestone in this sinister evolution, combining primitive medical knowledge with mechanical engineering to create a device that could cause prolonged agony without resulting in immediate death. The construction of the instrument demonstrated diabolical engineering applied to pure cruelty. Made of forged iron, the device had the shape of a metallic pear divided into segments connected by complex screws. A simple turn of a key made the segments open like deadly petals, expanding from their compact size to devastating dimensions. Imagine standing before the Inquisitor judge and seeing this metallic pear resting on the table, knowing that a simple turn of a key could transform your body into a stage for slow destruction. Many confessed to any crime without even being touched by the instrument, just by the sight of its relentless mechanism. During the 15th and 16th centuries, different versions were created for specific crimes: the oral for heretics and blasphemers, the anal for homosexuals, and the vaginal for women accused of witchcraft or adultery. This macabre categorization reflected how medieval society associated different sins with specific parts of the body, creating a perverse logic of symbolic punishment. The most detailed records about the use of the Pear of Torment come from the archives of the Spanish Inquisition, particularly during the period between the years. Documents preserved in Seville describe specific procedures for the application of the instrument, including necessary preparations, recommended duration of the torture, and basic medical care to keep the victim conscious during the process. This bureaucratic documentation of torture demonstrates how extreme cruelty can be normalized through official procedures and institutional regulations. The process of applying the instrument was ritualized to maximize psychological terror beyond physical suffering. The victim was first shown the device and informed about its functioning, creating anticipation and fear that often resulted in confessions even before application. This psychological phase was considered an integral part of the torture, demonstrating a sophisticated understanding of how fear can be used as a control tool more effective than direct physical violence. During the 15th century, the use of the pear spread beyond the Inquisition's courts to secular courts throughout Europe. In the year 1467, records from Nuremberg document its use in cases of political treason, while London archives show similar application during the reign of Edward. This international proliferation of the instrument reveals how innovations in cruelty could spread rapidly through communication networks between judicial authorities, creating a kind of shared technology of torture. The most documented and shocking case occurred in the year 1512 in Toledo, involving Isabella de Córdoba, a 32-year-old woman accused of witchcraft by an envious neighbor. Isabella maintained her innocence for months of interrogation until she was taken to the chamber where the pair awaited on an oak table. The Inquisitor Tomás de Herrera described in his records how Isabella broke down upon seeing the instrument, immediately confessing to diabolical practices she had never committed. Her forced confession resulted in execution at the stake just 3 days later, but the terror she felt upon contemplating the metallic pear had completely broken her spirit long before any flame touched her. During the 16th century, technical refinements were introduced by specialized artisans who competed to create more effective versions of the instrument. Some versions included sharp points that emerged during expansion, intensifying internal damage. Others incorporated heating mechanisms that allowed the metal to be heated before application. These developments reveal how professional competition can be applied even to the darkest fields of human activity. The medical effects of the pear's application were devastating, and often permanent. Victims who survived the process faced severe infections, permanent structural damage, and psychological trauma that persisted for a lifetime. Primitive medical records from the time document attempts to treat victims of the pear, revealing that some doctors developed specialization in treating wounds caused by specific torture instruments, creating a macabre medicine dedicated to dealing with the consequences of institutionalized cruelty. The most historically documented variation was the oral version, used mainly against those accused of heresy and blasphemy. Inserted into the victim's mouth in its compact form, the instrument was gradually expanded until it broke teeth, dislocated the jaw, and caused internal damage to the throat. The process was designed to be slow and controlled, allowing torturers to stop and restart, depending on the victim's cooperation. This capacity to control the intensity and duration of the torture made the instrument particularly effective for extracting specific information. The anal version was reserved for those accused of homosexual acts or other behaviors considered against nature by medieval morality. Its application followed similar procedures, but with the specific intention of causing damage that symbolically punished the alleged crime. This symbolic association between crime and punishment reflected the medieval mentality that saw justice as necessarily involving a physical correspondence between offense and castigation. The vaginal version was applied in cases involving accusations of witchcraft, adultery, or other offenses considered specifically feminine by medieval society. Often, women accused of relations with demons were subjected to this treatment as a form of forced purification. This gender-specific application reveals how the pear was used not only as an instrument of torture, but as a tool of social control that reinforced gender hierarchies through extreme violence. During the 17th century, reports from travelers and diplomats began to document reactions of horror from foreign observers exposed to the use of the pear in European courts. The English ambassador to the Spanish court wrote in the year 1630 that this diabolical instrument surpasses in cruelty any device conceived by pagan minds, demonstrating how even observers accustomed to the violence of their time considered the pear extreme in its cruelty. The production of the pear of torment became a specialized industry during the 15th and 16th centuries. Blacksmiths in cities like Toledo, Nuremberg, and Milan developed specific reputations for their versions of the instrument, competing for contracts with ecclesiastical and secular courts. These artisans often signed their work, demonstrating professional pride in creations dedicated to human suffering. This commercialization of cruelty reveals how economic incentives can perpetuate and refine inhumane practices. The torture manuals of the period, particularly the Malleus Maleficarum and other official texts of the Inquisition, provided detailed instructions for the appropriate use of the pear. These instructions included victim preparation, instrument cleaning procedures, and protocols for determining when to stop the application to avoid premature death. This official codification of torture transformed extreme cruelty into a routine bureaucratic procedure. During the 17th century, as attitudes towards judicial torture began to change, the use of the pear gradually declined in most European jurisdictions. In the year 1748, France officially abolished judicial torture, followed by other European states in the following decades. However, the instrument continued to be used unofficially in prisons and during secret interrogations well into the 19th century. The most detailed historical documentation on the effects of the pear comes from Venetian medical records of the 6th. Doctors from the Hospital of San Giovanni documented treatments of torture victims, describing injuries and recovery procedure. These medical records provide scientific evidence about the physical effects of the instrument, but also reveal how medical professionals of the time ethically dealt with treating victims of officially sanctioned torture. The preservation of physical specimens of the pair in European museums allows for modern analysis of its construction and functionality. Specimens in the Museum of Torture Instruments in Rothenburg, ob der Tauber, Germany, show the mechanical sophistication of the device and regional variations in its design. This physical evidence confirms historical descriptions about the ingenuity applied to the creation of instruments of suffering. Modern analysis of the pair of torment reveals disturbing aspects about the human capacity to systematize cruelty. The instrument was not the product of individual sadism, but the result of a collaborative process involving artisans, judicial authorities, clergy, and doctors, working together to refine methods of causing maximum suffering. This institutional collaboration in the creation of cruelty demonstrates how entire societies can be complicit in humane practices when these are legitimized by authority and tradition. The psychological legacy of the pair extends far beyond its direct victim. Entire generations grew up with the knowledge that this instrument existed and could be used against anyone accused of appropriate crimes. This generalized terror functioned as a form of social control, creating an atmosphere of fear that discouraged dissent and reinforced conformity with dominant religious and social norms. The detailed documentation of the pair in judicial, medical, and diplomatic records serves as irrefutable historical evidence of the human capacity for extreme cruelty when it is institutionalized and normalized. These multiple sources confirm not only the existence of the instrument, but its systematic application over several centuries in multiple European jurisdictions. Today, when we confront contemporary questions about torture and the treatment of prisoners, the history of the pair of torment serves as a somber reminder of how far societies can descend when they abandon fundamental principles of human dignity. The instrument remains a symbol of the perpetual need for vigilance against the normalization of cruelty, regardless of how sophisticated or morally justified its justifications may seem. The memory of the pair of torment obliges us to question our own systems of justice in treatment of the accused, reminding us that civilizations that considered themselves morally superior created and systematically used instruments of extreme suffering. This history serves as a warning that the capacity for institutionalized cruelty remains a constant threat that must be consciously resisted through permanent moral vigilance and an unbreakable commitment to basic human rights.